What's going on, everyone? I'm Chris Baker.
And I'm Ty Backer.
Welcome to episode 139 of Behind the Toolbelt with TC Backer Construction.
Behind the Toolbelt is sponsored by Lead Scout. Find out more at leadscoutapp.com.
TC Backer family, we're going to start this episode off by pleading to Facebook to quit changing shit up. Because I can't share it in my damn groups, and the shit's annoying.
For real. I couldn't even share it.
Like, so. if the shit ain't broke, don't fix it, man.
Seriously. I see Colin and Dan Barker on there already. And it's been a great week. Yes. And the sun came back. It seemed like it was getting a little chilly there for a minute, the mornings and afternoons and evenings.
I know, right? We can feel it in the studio, man. Yeah,
it was getting a little chilly, but it seemed like the sun came back out and things are starting to warm back up. And we're in the dog days of August, like I like. I just celebrated a birthday and an anniversary last week, which I didn't announce to anyone. I tried to stay humble or hide. I don't know which one it was, but probably more so hide.
Hiding, for sure.
Yeah, I hid that a little bit, and it was a great week. There was a lot of great things that happened, and I appreciate. And there were so many people that reached out that I couldn't keep up with. It was over 500 people, at least on Facebook, some way, shape, or form, reached out to me between text messages, emails, phone calls. It was probably close to 800 people reached out. So I was quite a bit overwhelmed with joy and happiness and wow, just the impact of 2 words, happy birthday, that had on me is amazing. And it made me start thinking about how just a simple, phrase or 2 words can have such an impact on somebody's life for the entire weekend. I was on cloud 9. I appreciate everybody for wishing me a happy birthday. So here's my thank you to everybody out there. Happy fucking birthday to me. It's my birthday week, birthday month. And until August 31st, it will be my birthday. So
awesome.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So TC Backer family, we got a very special guest with us today. I'm sure you see the handsome gentleman down here at the bottom of the screen, Mr. Mathew Mulholland. He is the dean at now I just completely drew
the National Claims Institute. What is the National Claims Institute? Is that something legit, or is that something you made up?
Oh, every business name is something that's made up, right?
Yes,
we definitely made it up, but it's legit. We legitimately made it up. Yeah, it's been around for a little bit of time. So National Claims Institute is a school for learning how to deal with insurance claims on every side of it, from every aspect. We teach contractors, public adjusters, insurance adjusters, engineers, attorneys, everybody.
Wow. Awesome. That's cool. So it's not just one side of the fence. So it's not just for contractors.
No. Although the vast majority of our students are from policyholder advocacy side, for sure.
Right.
Wow. Is this something that you started, or do you own it? Do you work there?
There's a group of us that started it. I was one of the founding members, you could say. I'm one of the owners of it, but there is a group involved. So I couldn't run the thing completely by myself. It's a pretty big project. It's very ambitious what we're trying to do.
Wow. How many employees do you have?
Technically, 2.
Okay. Okay. So you're a smaller facility that does great things, which we can
Yeah, completely
contest
relate to that.
you know, we do a lot with very little. So I can understand.
Well, we bring in experts and things, and we've got 2 different classrooms running at any given time. So 2 employees, but that's just because you wouldn't count some of the business owners who aren't taking any money that are still doing a bunch of work. So
Yeah.
Right.
technically 2. Reality, more like about 8 or 9.
Gotcha.
Okay. Okay, cool. So is this like a 8 to 5 kind of job? Like do contractors fly in from all over the country? Like give us
Yeah, they do.
okay, like on 7 days a week, 5 days a week. Give us the whole rundown on this.
So we do run the school runs weekdays, although I do a traveling tour on a few different things. But the latest traveling tour I did run on a weekend for one of the dates. But we're a 8 to 6 school. We've got a bar, so we open the bar up Tuesday nights when I'm doing the Listen to This Bull show. Studio's right there on campus. People can be a live studio audience for it. I grab a beer and they grab a beer and they laugh while we have some fun with it. But we have a lot of in-person classes. There's our most popular course for contractors is the roof inspection courses. So you've heard of Hague or HAG, whatever you want to call them. Mm-hmm. So we've got a set of courses that is supposed to completely throw Hague out the window. You know, it's a 5-day course for the composition roof inspection certification course. Comp shingles, it sounds like you wouldn't have 5 days worth of shit to talk about. I promise you, we go over most days, and it's so much information per minute coming at them. People tend to have headaches. I hand out ibuprofen like candy during the class as a just-in-case measure. There's a lot that goes on in there, and we teach people not only how to investigate the loss, how to identify hail, wind, footfall, mechanical damages, all the other fun stuff on shingles. We also apply the policy the whole time. This is how the policies work. This is why you need this documentation. This is why you can't get away with a half-ass job that you're probably doing now. Here's some examples of some half-ass jobs and the results from that. We go through this entire process. So not only do brand new people get a hell of a lot out of it and they leave there with a ton of confidence, but we have people that come into this that you would argue are already asphalt shingle experts, and they still leave feeling like they didn't know very much beforehand, and now they know a shit ton. There's a lot there.
That's good
we
stuff.
pride ourselves on being super deep on stuff.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. Now, is the ibuprofen for all the alcohol that everybody's drank, or is that because it's so boring?
You know, it's a dual purpose.
Dual purpose. Okay. I can dig it. I can dig it, man. Now, you were talking about HAG. So, do you offer a certificate that somebody would go through your 5-day course?
Yeah. So, the roof inspection courses do have a certification exam at the end of the class. If you pass the exam, you leave with a certification. You can be NCI certified composition shingle or roof inspector, or specialty roof inspector, or commercial low slope roof inspector. We have interior inspection certification courses as well. I've got public adjuster courses that have some certifications. Fun stuff.
Yeah. Okay.
That's cool, man.
Now, do we have to come to you to get this certification, or do you fly out to somebody else's facility and teach them for 5 days?
Most of our classes are in person at our campus. We do offer the ability for us to come to you, but it's not cheap, mostly because there's only so many of us. Right. So we have a very full schedule. In order to take time out of our schedule and have us come out to you for a private type event, it's fairly expensive. So it ends up being cheaper for you to come out. But for the roof inspection courses, they are in person because they're very hands-on. We've got a bunch of mock roofs that we end up inspecting during the course. We even put tools in people's hands so that we can teach them how to make a simulated repair in order to prove that something is or isn't repairable. We get them use the stupid ass roof snake tool. It's a piece of shit. We go through a lot of different things, but being hands-on, you actually get to feel hail damage that we know is hail. You get to see some really weird hail. I have a square hail hit on one of the boards out here right now. It's insane.
Yeah.
And you're like, that's not hail. And then you lift up the shingle, which is a ridge cap, and it's laying over an architectural shingle, but it's overexposed on it. So you have the outline of the tooth behind the hail hit, which caused a square crease in it. So it makes sense.
Yeah.
We're doing a lot of stuff.
Where was that from? Was that a
I shot it. I'm shooting these things with hail. We've got a hail cannon.
Oh, okay.
Nice.
Okay. Explain more about the hail cannon.
Yeah, that's pretty cool, man.
Yeah.
Well, we were given the hail cannon by Euroshield. We've got a Euroshield. Are you familiar with Euroshield?
Mm-hmm.
It's a rubber roof material. They say that at least one of their products is technically hail proof. I didn't believe it. So they gave me a hail cannon in order to test it out. So I built one of their roofs, which was one of the easiest roofs I've ever built, by the way. They cut so easy. It's so much better than any of the other synthetics. But anyway, I'm not going to go down that path. Okay. They gave me this hail cannon, and we were able to fire at these different roof materials so that we can show people what hail looks like by firing it. Now, it's not perfect because these are spheres we're firing and not jagged hail that you might get in some areas, but it gives as close an approximation as possible to show someone what it is they're looking for, so they can feel the difference between a blister or a hail hit.
Right.
Dude, I want a fucking hail cannon.
You have a hail?
No, I want one.
Yeah.
That sounds fucking cool.
Like, I was going to ask you, like, is it something that Euroshield built, or is it something you can buy somewhere?
No, it's not a purchased product, although it's not hard to build, and it's entirely possible I start selling plans to this thing or something, or giving them away. But it's basically an air tank. You get an air compressor and you fill up a secondary tank that has an outlet on it that you can put a ball valve on. And you fill up this tank to a certain pressure, take the air compressor off of it, and then you just open the ball valve and it releases all that pressure all at once.
Yeah.
And so you can put different barrels on that ball valve of different diameters. And depending on the amount of pressure you stick in there will depend on how fast it comes out the chamber. So it's fairly simple in design.
Potato gun with hail in it.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too.
Yeah, dude. We can build a potato gun.
For sure.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, basically the same shit.
Yeah, that's pretty cool, man. I've never heard of that before.
Me neither. Going back to your certificate, what does NCI stand for?
National Claims Institute.
Okay, duh. And now,
okay. You can feel stupid.
Okay. Well, in case of our viewers didn't connect the dots on that, I figured I would ask. Now, is this? I can't be the only fucking idiot out there. Okay.
No.
Come on, give me.
I tell my students at the beginning of the class, don't be afraid to ask questions. Everybody has stupid questions. Can we all agree that we're all retarded? And everybody goes, yeah.
True that.
Right, we're all retarded, so you're not going to look retarded in front of us. We all know.
Right on.
It works out pretty well.
Seriously, right? Now, is this like a federal recognized or state, or on a state level, only in the state of Florida, or does it hold any water? Like if I flash my badge of my NCI certification to an adjuster that I'm in debate with, does it hold water?
These kinds of certifications, they hold water when someone is able to prove that that certification has given them a certain amount of knowledge. And we have been able to do that. As far as a federal, any organization backing this up, there isn't one for our industry. So there is nothing that can back that. What backs it is whether or not you can actually establish that you have become expert by gaining something like this. And we have been able to establish that. So it has just as much weight as any Hague thing. It's just not as well known yet.
Right.
But if you were to go toe to toe against the Hague person with an NCI person, the NCI person will be able to blow them out of the water. There's just so much more information given to them and fills in the gaps. I don't know if you've ever been to a Hague class, but it really feels like there's no information given that could possibly benefit a policyholder.
Yeah.
Seems a bit biased.
Yeah. And I think the important thing is that you're educating contractors more to arm them with the correct tools to go to be able to look for storm damage. Okay. And once they find storm damage, to prove it to the homeowner and the insurance company, I think that knowledge alone holds water to be able to say the right things, have the correct documentation prepared already. I think that knowledge there is almost priceless. So if we ran into a situation, do you take calls? Like, say we ran into a situation the other day, we could only find like 10 hail hits on the roof. The installation,
the whole roof?
Yeah, pretty much. Like, that's about all we could find on it.
Okay.
The entire thing. So I'm trying to think how this went. So there was storm damage with wind. There was wind damage. So we went out, we inspected. Yes, there was wind damage, but I could tell right away that it was due to poor installation, right? That it was nailed super high. The shingles were delaminating. And then as I was standing there looking at it, I could see some blistering, but then I also saw some impact and some bruising. So I got there probably about 30 minutes before the insurance adjuster got there, and I'm making marks and I'm writing things down. And at first he seemed pretty cool about it. Like he could get the roof paid, at least the front half of the roof, which I thought, okay, we're getting somewhere here. But then he disappeared. He was on the ground. He was doing something, and I saw him out in the front yard, and he started snapping pictures of the roof and climbs up on the ladder. Now, mind you, he wouldn't get up on the ladder because it was a super steep roof. And he said that he couldn't find any collateral damage to collaborate the storm damage that we were showing him on the roof itself. So tell us what collateral damage is.
Collateral damage is just damage to something else. You can have shingle damage can be itself collateral damage if you're claiming that the window screens are damaged by hail. Well, you just need to show that there's other things that are damaged. So collateral damage is just other shit that's damaged by the same peril. Some things you have a harder time arguing against. So soft metal damage is generally the kind of thing that most people are looking for because it's very hard to simulate hail damage on soft metals. It can be randomly consistent. So if he didn't find any collateral damage and you didn't point any out to him, I tell you, a lot of adjusters, in my experience, will walk around a property 20 feet away from the downspouts at a brisk pace without slowing down. So if you don't really show them the damages like that, then there might not be anything for them to look at. I'll tell you this, though, as well. Most adjusters and engineers are looking for collateral damage for wind, and most contractors are not. And that's a real shame. If you don't have collateral wind damage, that's why they're calling it mechanical most of the time. So you can look for the same kind of shit, some other damages that might be a result of wind, even if it's just a piece of fascia wrap that's kind of pulled away slightly. You're not going to claim that necessarily. You might get up, you might tack it back in with a nail for the policyholder as a gimme. But you should still point it out to the adjuster because it's collateral wind. It shows that a wind event has occurred. These kinds of things you have to be able to prove. So part of the documentation process is not just identifying collateral, identifying the damages on the roof. You also have to identify any evidence that supports that this is definitely hail. One of the things we teach is having a control methodology. If you've got a tree overhanging a roof and you're doing a test square on this roof, you do a test square away from the tree, right? Because it's going to block some hail. Well, if they're saying it's all wear and tear, then wear and tear should be the same under the tree, right?
Right.
So that area under the tree becomes the control. If it's got more damage under the tree than elsewhere, maybe it is the acorns that are falling from the tree that they might say. But if it's less damage under the tree than everywhere else, then that's good evidence that it's probably from hail.
Right. Makes sense.
So using those kinds of areas where it's going to be different or should be different if it isn't or is hail is a control methodology for an inspection. You can develop much less arguable documentation. There's a better way to say that, and I'm missing it right now.
We're following you, man. We're following you.
No, it made total sense. And especially with the soft metals and stuff like that, we couldn't find, neither could he find any dents on the downspouts. And unfortunately, this house had like zero metal other than the downspouts and the gutters. And there was one pipe boot that had like the aluminum base. And there may have been one ding in it. Unfortunately for this homeowner, the insurance company deemed it repairable for them. And even though when we looked at it, it wasn't, but unfortunately, I think a lot of it had to do with faulty install. And is that something an insurance company would definitely not cover, right? Is faulty install?
So there is such a thing in policies called an ensuing loss provision. You might have improper installation excluded in the policy, but if that policy also has an ensuing loss provision tied to that exclusion, then any loss that isn't otherwise excluded that results from it would still be covered. So if there is an ensuing loss provision on that policy, and many of them have this tied to improper installation, if they installed the shingles wrong and that led to more damage from wind, then that's an ensuing loss of the improper installation possibly, and it would still be covered.
So all you would have to do is really just prove that due to the improper installation, the high nailing, whatever, that
you don't have to prove that. They're already going to say that crap. That's what they're trying to get away with.
Gotcha.
If you're trying to say that there's two causes of loss acting at the same time, this is concurrent causation. You've got excluded cause of improper installation and included cause of loss of wind, probably included. Some areas don't cover wind damage. In most states, they always cover the included cause of loss as well. So if you can prove that even though it's been affected by improper installation, it's more susceptible to wind damage. The fact that wind still caused damage would still be covered in most states.
Right.
So a lot of the shit that they say, they give you impartial amount of information. They don't tell you that there's two different causes of loss acting concurrently. They only tell you the proximate cause of loss as they see it. And they would see the proximate cause of loss as being the improper installation. But most policies are still going to apply concurrent causation rules depending on the state. If it's a primary cause of loss or a proximate cause of loss state, generally speaking, if there is an outside force acting upon this that is covered, as long as you can't separate out those damages, it would still be a covered loss. There's a lot of stuff that is just bullshit that is fed to contractors constantly from adjusters and insurance companies. And unfortunately, it's probably because the adjusters who are meeting on site are fed bullshit from their management. And they're just relaying that information because most of those guys are great guys.
Right.
But there's a lot to learn.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
Now, Mike Brown has a question. He said, what about the same policy and improper install that led to a leak?
I mean, most of the leaks that are coming from improper installation, can we switch it to wear and tear for ease of explanation?
Yeah.
Wear and tear is excluded in the policies. A lot of times wear and tear has an ensuing loss provision tied to it as well. Not always, but a lot of times. When you have a pipe boot that degrades, a rubber and plastic pipe boot, the rubber seal starts to wear out. It gets dry rot. That leads to a lot of leaks, and that's wear and tear. It's definitely a result of age that happens. But the adjusters oftentimes will still pay for the interior, and they're paying for the interior because of the ensuing loss provision that's tied into that policy. They don't realize it most of the time. They're just told by their management that they can pay for the interior. They just can't pay for the pipe boot. They can't pay for that pipe boot because it's excluded because it's wear and tear, but any resulting loss that occurs as a result of that wear and tear is still covered under the ensuing loss provision that's there. Same thing with improper installation. If you got flashing that's improperly installed, if there's an ensuing loss provision tied to that, water gets behind that flashing, hits the decking gets rotted. The decking has a hidden damage clause where if it's hidden behind the ceilings, walls, and floors, unknown to the insured, that seepage might actually be covered. Improper installation of flashing could lead to replacement of the decking. In order to get the decking replaced, you have to remove the shingles. You're replacing the roof anyway. Yeah. These kinds of things are built into policies. They work that way. You just have to know how to work it.
Right. Now, how would a homeowner know if they have this ensuing loss prevention thing on their policies? Is that something that
policies are not easy to read? We do have insurance policy interpretation courses available that we do via Zoom, but they're supposed to be written in plain language, and they're very clearly not. You could, if you had a PDF of your policy, you could hit Control F and search for either the word ensuing, ENSUING, or resulting. One of those two words is going to be used in any ensuing loss provision. And you can see it'll specify which exclusions it's tied to.
Gotcha.
Somewhere in.
So it'll say plain as day if it's tied to the flashing, if it's tied to your decking, if
Well, it won't say flashing. It'll say improper installation. So if they're saying that the cause of the water intrusion is improper installation of the flashing, perfect. Is there an ensuing loss provision tied to that?
Gotcha.
Yeah, that's perfect.
That's really good information.
It is.
Really good information.
And you were popping it off. I mean, obviously you do this every day. So I guess I'm curious, like, how long have you been doing this?
Well, I was a roofing contractor back when the economy tanked in 2007. So I was knocking on doors like probably a lot of your audience, and I fucking hated it, just like a lot of your audience. I wasn't great at it, but I did it because I had to. And at some point, I realized that I was better at dealing with insurance carriers than most, even though I didn't like it either. But if I didn't like it, then other people probably didn't like it. So I could probably make some money if I started doing that part of the claim for people. I became a public adjuster, left my contracting firm, and opened up a company called All Good Adjustments in Georgia. If you know anything about Georgia, I would argue it's the worst possible state for insurance related claims. There's absolutely no consumer protection available for any policyholder. There's not, appraisal's broken. You can't go to appraisal. We don't have any attorney's fees getting paid ever. I don't think there's been a bad faith verdict on anything since I've been in this industry in Georgia. That's how bad it is.
Wow.
So I started All Good Adjustments. It became the largest PA firm in Georgia. We were running about 3,000 claims a year, residential roofs for the vast majority of them, about 95% of them residential roof claims. So I've got a lot of experience on the roof claim side specifically. We did a ton of fire and water. The second most that we did was water mitigation, that type of stuff, dealing with a lot of asbestos and other things. We eventually went to strictly large loss because you have to in order to make money as a PA. And then we sold in order for me to be able to open the school. So this is my full-time job at this point. We've been doing the school's been open for about a year and a half. But I've been teaching people how to deal with insurance policies even when I was a PA with our YouTube channel, Listen to This Bull, and which is also a weekly live streaming podcast like this one.
Awesome. How long have you been doing that?
That's been around for about 3 years, 4 years, something like that.
Nice.
There's a lot of really good videos on there, 10, 15-minute videos that explain how small portions of policies work. If you want to watch a video on how they should apply coverage to a shingle that's being replaced when the shingle over there has already been replaced by the homeowner and they used a completely different shingle. So how can you argue for matching on this one when they already blew matching on the one over there? It's a simple argument for it. So there's videos that go over very specific type of situations, 10, 15 minutes long, and they're a lot of fun.
Yeah, I love that.
Insurance is not a fun topic. We try to make it fun.
Yeah.
Well, you seem like someone that likes to add character into things, man. So I know, having your show going for over 3 years, man, that consistency, it's not easy to do, man. So kudos to you on that one.
Yeah, for sure.
Thank you.
So anyone listening, like and subscribe to his YouTube page. What is it called? Listen to This Bull.
That's it. We talk about bullshit in the insurance world.
Right on. Love it. And a lot of it is bullshit. Vic, if you don't mind, if you can put that link in the comments down there, that way people, and while we're at it, let's do a big shout out to Hook Agency. Hook Agency is a Google specialized marketing team that only works with contractors offering SEO, Google ad management, plus website design.
Boom. Tim Brown.
Yep.
Man.
So thank you, Tim Brown, for hooking us up, and Lead Scout and everyone else that has supported us through this journey. So go to Mathew's YouTube page, subscribe, follow him on Facebook. Are you only on Facebook?
Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, all the fun stuff.
There you go. This dude's full of knowledge, obviously. Like, I've already been blown away. We got great people in here saying that they've learned so much from this video in the past 29 minutes that and this has been a great
dude. I've learned a bunch of stuff already that I didn't even know.
Right. So that's one of our selfish motives is to get our guests on here and pick the shit out of their brain so we don't have to pay for your services. So
I mean, that's what I do. That makes sense.
Yeah. So
I steal ideas from my students. I keep a notepad beside the podium. Every time they tell me something I didn't know, I just write it down and I learn from them. And then guess what? I teach the next class that stuff. So if you come in, I'm going to steal your information.
There you
Deal
go.
with it.
Right
That's
on.
good stuff, man.
So I don't know if I asked you this or not, but if we go through your course, can we contact you if we have an issue? Did I ask you that?
Oh, yeah. No. No, there's no, obviously we're everywhere. There's no way to not get a hold of us. So we even give you access to an alumni Facebook group if you need to take a look. But the last slide that I have for almost any class is actually my personal contact information on a QR code so people can put it directly into their phones. I'm not very quick at responding. I get a lot of emails, texts, and Facebook messages. And I'm teaching class 8 hours a day and then have to do, back end work afterwards. So I'm a busy man, but I will eventually get back to you.
Yeah.
I like to be helpful.
Right. And you're only one person, you know what I mean? And I get that, and you're a busy dude, but I appreciate the fact that you do put yourself out there and you were honest and open to say, like, I'll get back to you when I can get back to you, but that's cool that you put yourself out there.
Mm-hmm. Your personal contact information.
Yeah. Your personal contact information. And I'm really I'm interested too. So I know TJ McCormick's got this, he's going to do, what is he calling it? The roofing ahead of the curve. And he's doing that at your facility.
It is. So we're going to be hosting this event. EuroShield and World's Greatest Roofer are presenting roofing ahead of the curve. The idea behind that event is roofers are in a completely different world right now than they were 2 years ago. There's so many laws that have changed. There's so many different ways that the policies have changed. If you are in this industry, you must have noticed how things are turning slightly against you. Mm-hmm. Roofing ahead of the curve is designed to try to give you a little bit of a leg up, get you back ahead of the curve so you can make changes and adapt with the market. Mm-hmm. So you can stay in business. I think it's a great idea.
Yeah,
we do too. We definitely think that's a great idea. And that's something that we started actually a while ago, trying to adapt and change, not necessarily the landscape or the canvas, but we started to change move, so we started to get into commercial. We started to, obviously we do retail, obviously we do storm restoration and new construction, because like you, we've gone through, 2007, 8, 9, and 10. And back then we kind of sort of had our eggs all in one basket. And since then we've kind of diversified to be able to pivot in whichever direction, the economic, whatever you want to call it, right, whatever direction it's going in. So, commercial usually falls about a year behind, residential new construction, and then commercial starts to fall off, but then there's retail, and usually there's a storm or two in between that you can just add that into your portfolio for the year. And I think a lot of contractors just get so stuck on like one form of sales or one form of marketing of like, this is all we do. We do retail. We're sitting around with our thumb up our ass for the phone to ring, you know what I mean, and have become lead babies opposed to sticking to the basics. And I think a lot of people forget about like the first day when they decided to go out on their own, where they had to up the minutes on their phone and they networked with every single person that they knew and shook the trees and kicked the bushes. And we've been saying a lot, if you stick to the basics, you don't have to go back to them. Like, what did you do when you first got into business? If you've been in business for some time, okay, like what did you do early on? Like,
keep that hunger, keep that fire.
Right. You keep that chuck and you keep that jive, right? And that's what we've done. And it's like, and I even had an epiphany the other day. It's like a lot of people say, man, if I could go back to when I was 18 years old, but if I knew what I knew now, things would be much different. Well, who's to say that I'm not fucking 18 right now? And I do know what I know today. And you know what? I don't have to do it by myself today. I actually have smarter fucking people around me today. And can you imagine if I apply that same hustle, that same mentality, that same hunger, that same fire that I had 14 years ago, 15 years ago, and apply that to today? Can you imagine the fucking miracles we could perform on a daily basis? And that's where we're at right now. And I think a lot of people start to rest on their laurels and start to back off. And right now they're not like, they're cutting back their marketing budget. They're cutting back on their branding budget. Right now is the time you need to fucking double down and get your ass out there and be as transparent as you can possibly be. Like, you got to get off your ass and do something right now. And
do you think laurels is just another word for ass?
It totally is. Get off your fucking ass and do something.
Yeah.
I was just wondering.
Yeah, for real. Right. And that's that mentality.
Yeah.
That's the mindset. And it's
That's a really good point.
you know, like, and they fall into this thing, like every time the phone rings, like, oh God, who is that? You know what I say? That's fucking opportunity. Answer the phone. Every time that phone rings today, I don't give a shit who it is. If it's an out-of-state number, if it's an in-state number, if it says caller ID blocked, guess what? That's opportunity. I'm answering the phone. And you can ask John as my witness. I swear to God, I did it probably 3 times in front of him. I looked at my phone. I looked at him. I showed him my phone. I had no idea who the fuck it was. And I answered it. And lo and behold, guess what? It was somebody that needed a quote for a roof. I was like, that's opportunity, baby. And if I would be sitting on my ass, my laurels, right? That would have never happened. Because if I wouldn't have answered the phone, they're not going to leave a fucking message. They're going to call somebody else that will answer the phone and will get out to their house and give them a quote on their roof or siding, windows, gutters, whatever it is that you guys do, that we do in our industry right now.
Boom, baby. So how'd you get into the roofing industry, man? Because you said you were a contractor at first. What brought you into this industry?
So I owned a few businesses prior to the Great Recession, and they failed. So I ended up selling cars on a car lot for a while. Moved from Daytona Beach up to Marietta, Georgia, right outside of Atlanta, in order to be in a market that wasn't as affected, in order to maintain for my family. I had a couple of young kids at the time. And someone came onto the car lot looking to buy a car, supposedly, probably not. Found me and then told me about his roofing company and how there's hail damage fucking everywhere. He pointed to this strip mall across from the lot that had a rooftop AC unit, and it was salt and pepper from the distance. You know, you just saw all the hail dents right there. And it's like, you see all that? You see the salt and pepper? That's from hail. And I was like, why the fuck aren't you over there talking to them instead of me?
That's a great question.
Yeah. I mean, he invited me to go out and take a look. My next day off, which was like 2 weeks later, because the car industry, you work fucking always. So I took a day off, which was rare for me, and went out there, and he spent like 10 minutes with me explaining some stuff and said, go out and make 5 appointments, and then I'll go out with you the next day and do that. So I took a second day off. I think I called in sick. The best way to call in sick, by the way, is to say that you have diarrhea. No one ever actually will say that unless they have it, right? Because it's so embarrassing. Dude, I'm hitting myself constantly. I cannot come in. Every time I try to get into my car, I have to leave to go take another shit. It's the easiest way out. You don't have to sound like you're sick. Anyway, besides the point. So I go and I set 7 appointments. It was my first day out. And I went back in. I was like, all right, I got 7. And he's like, oh, shit. Well, I can't go to any of them with you. What? So I ran my own appointments. He spent about 5 minutes with me. He told me that if you go, you got these black streaks on the roof, right? You've seen the black streaks? Yeah. It's like, it's algae. It's like, all right, yeah, I'm familiar. I used to pressure wash roofs. I did a soft wash with. I'm not going to get into that. So we have these streaks coming down the roof. He's like, well, if you go to the top of that streak, you're going to see there's a little indentation where the water is kind of resting in there a little bit longer. And that's what's causing that streak to erupt from that top. And that's why there's this line coming down from a spot. You'll find hail hit right at the top of that. I was like, fuck, that's hail? Hell yeah. So I went out to all 7 of those, and I went to the top of those. I didn't find any fucking hail at the top of those. That was bullshit. It was good bullshit, but it was bullshit. But I signed 3 of those 7, and then I was like, so we have an insurance claim. And he's like, yeah. As soon as it gets scheduled, let me know, and we'll come out there and we'll do the adjustment together. No, he didn't do that either. So I won.
No wonder you fucking hated it.
I won all 3. But it was a lot. It was a much easier time back then. The adjusters were trying to find coverages. It was just a very different world. I don't know if it would work out the exact same way, because I really don't think that there was legitimate damage on any of them. But I learned that dealing with insurance adjusters was actually kind of fun. It wasn't a fight. I thought that there might be a fight because there's people like me saying those fucking guys were doing all this shit on the internet. So I thought there would be a fight, and there wasn't. It was just a guy doing his job, and I had fun with the guy. We had a disagreement, and I explained my position. He explained his. I was reasonable. He was reasonable. If he was able to sway me, I would have been swayed. I'm not going to stick to my guns on something where someone has a reasonable argument. If they have a good point, I mention it. That's a good point. All right. Yeah, I agree. Good point. There's no reason to have these big, long battles, just because most of the time, to be honest, you're probably wrong.
Yeah.
That's how I got in the industry. I had to teach myself everything within about 7 or 8 months. And he did eventually teach me some stuff. Don't get me wrong. I still talk to the guy. He's a very nice guy. So I'm very, very happy that he pulled me off that car lot, even though he didn't do those few appointments with me. But I started my own company pretty quickly, about 6 months later, with a business partner, All Good Roof Systems. And we were in business for about 2 years before I moved over to be a PA.
Yeah.
That's cool, man.
Yeah.
That's a cool story.
Yeah, it is a cool story. And it just goes to show you too, it's sometimes you learn more. You had to go through that trial and error and make those mistakes and find out what works and what doesn't work. And honestly, the school of hard knocks, like, I guess, what are people calling it now? The dumb tax or whatever, it's like you have to pay the dumb tax, bro. I know I have personally, and I wouldn't know what I know today if I didn't pay that dumb tax. And of course, with social media, you can ask anybody any question you want to anymore in these groups, and you get plenty of fucking feedback, and everyone's got an opinion. Just but I really think the experience, along with some good training, if someone is there to provide that training, but a lot of times you just take what you need, you leave the rest, and listen and absorb what you can, and figure out your way, your method, and hone your own craft. But you got to want it. You know what I mean? You got to want it. And it sounds like you wanted it, and you're doing fantastic, dude. I mean, you're all over social media. The stuff that you talk about, I've watched several of your podcasts. I probably started to follow you about 2.5 years ago. So I've known that you've been doing, listen to this bullshit for a while. And I dig that. I dig how you're out there, you're outgoing, you know what I mean? And you tell it like it is, man. Like, I feel like you're really what you see is what you get kind of guy. Mm-hmm. And I respect that. I respect the hell out of you, man. And hopefully we can get together. I don't think I'll be able to make it to Florida. Storm is that same week, Storm into the new era.
Yeah. Well, I'm probably going to be out in Denver as well. And then I'm going to have to leave a day early is what it's going to be. But yeah, no, I don't blame you on that. It looks like that's going to be a good event too.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a shame you won't be able to be here. I think you guys are actually going to be broadcasting live during our hail cannon firing during the event.
Yeah, I've been having a conversation with TJ, and I don't know if we're going to be able to pull it off or not. So I think he may have asked Patrick to do that, but it's never out of the question.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
If we can get to all the stars and the moons to align, we'll definitely be doing something live.
Well, it'll be cool. Either way, we're going to have a ton of content there. We've got John Senek is with NTS ID, the opposition to ITEL, and he's bringing a bunch of very specifically aged shingles so that we can start shooting shingles of a certain age. Sounds like a movie. Shingles of a certain age.
Yeah, that
Right?
does.
We can start hitting those things. A lot of the bullshit that's out there. Haig teaches that it takes 1.25 inch hail to damage a sound shingle. Well, the research that they did on that is only for up to 11 years old. They shot shingles for 10 years straight, and at the end of it, it was 11 years old. It was the oldest shingle that they shot, and it took 1.25 inch hail to cause functional damage, the way that they define it, not just damage, but specifically functional damage. So that became a rule of thumb for everything. But if your roof is 15 years old, then that research doesn't apply, and all of that rule of thumb bullshit goes out the window. It has to, because we don't even know what brand shingles those were from that research paper anyway. So right. John is going to be sending us, or actually he's going to be here. So he's going to be bringing us very specifically aged shingles that are discontinued. We're going to shoot some 15-year-old, some 20-year-old shingles, some 30-year-old shingles. We're going to shoot the Euro roof as well. And we're going to duck and weave as it bounces back at us because it doesn't get damaged at all. It's crazy.
That's cool, man. That's cool.
Yeah.
And on that a little bit too, I think, having that data would be really helpful, not only because of the age, but like, you can't tell me that depending on what region of the country you live in, that age it may change. You know what I mean? If you live in somewhere that's more cold, or, somewhere like Pennsylvania where we experience, sometimes all 4 seasons in one day. It can be hot as shit for a couple hours. It can be cold as shit at nighttime. You have all that, hot, cold. You can't tell me that our shingles don't wear differently than they do in somewhere like Texas or something like that, where it's constantly warm.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, I got on a roof in Florida after I moved back down because the school is in New Smyrna Beach. So I moved back down to the Daytona Beach area, and I got on a roof after a hail event about 6 months ago. And I would have sworn that this was a 20-year-old roof. Mm-hmm. In fact, I used the Haig shingle gauge, which I think is absolute garbage, by the way, on this thing for pre-2011 install, the big long one that exists. Mm-hmm. And I shouldn't have, because it was a 3-year-old roof. It was 3 years old, and it looked like it was 20 years old because it was beachside. It was getting hit with all of the salt air, but it had, they call it peel and stick in Florida, but it's the entire roof is self-adhesive ice and water, non-granulated. Mm-hmm. Underneath the shingles. So eat up with just excess heat, blistered like crazy, and it's a lower slope, and it was getting hit with Florida sun. That roof aged differently than it would in other places.
Right.
The research paper that they do all this on is based off of 2 locations that were in Texas, where Haig moved from one location to the next, brought them with him. They also put some kind of a cloth over them while they were outside throughout that 10-year process. I don't know why they did that.
Yeah, that's not accurate.
That doesn't make sense.
No, it doesn't.
Provide some UV protection.
Because, you're basically changing your base. You mentioned earlier about how you should always look for a base when you're doing these testings. You're basically changing your base, because that roof isn't even going to really apply to anywhere in Texas either now, because you're changing its environment. I mean, no place in the country experiences cloths over top of their shingles when they're not in use.
There's far too many rule of thumbs that are used by the carriers. The 10 and 15% waste model is a good example of that. We all know that there's definitely roofs that require more than 15% waste, especially if they're going to include ridge cap and starter, and that's a ridiculous thing. Mm-hmm. So it's a rule of thumb. It doesn't apply to everything. It shouldn't be gospel, and a lot of times that's the way that they apply it. So you have to know how to overcome that with the right documentation. So this kind of anyway, there's plenty of reason why you should definitely go out of your way to get as educated as you can on how insurance policies actually apply and how the information was gathered by the opposition originally. What research papers they're using for their information really opens your eyes. There's so much bullshit in this world. That's why a channel like Listen to This Bull in a little industry like insurance-related roof claims, for the most part, can last 3 years and still have a shit ton to talk about. Right. There's so much bullshit.
Yeah, I was just going to make a comment on, I'm sure you have plenty of content that you can talk about with that. Because it sounds like, you could probably do an entire year of shows just in research papers that were,
Good.
created improperly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah,
That's cool stuff, man.
oh yeah, it is.
Super interesting and informative. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
that's something that you could just get lost in a rabbit hole just watching them videos.
Right. Yeah, for sure. And when you were talking, Chris, and you guys were talking about, the difference between Florida and Texas, the climate is definitely huge, but in Florida, it's a lot humid than it is in Texas.
Mm-hmm.
Texas is drier.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So right there, yes, it's in the South, but I think the atmospheric weather, between humidity and dry air has to definitely play a role in how a shingle would age,
for sure,
opposed to up here in Pennsylvania, where we can experience, extreme cold, extreme heat, and all different types of elements, and especially like with the shingle getting cold. So down in Florida, shingle won't get cold. It'll bake.
Right.
You know what I mean? And certain shingles work better up here than they would down in the South. Like IKO just doesn't do a great job up here because of whatever is in the shingle. I think it's like that layer that's in between the layers. It's stone or it's harder or something doesn't work well up here, especially installed over the cooler months because it's harder. Yes, it's a thicker shingle, but I've seen it not hold up as good as like a CertainTeed or an Owens Corning or even a GAF. And then on the coast over in the Delaware, Virginia market and Ocean City, you would think with it being a heavier shingle and it doesn't work very well in that atmosphere either because there's a lot of high winds. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't seem like it like seals as quick as like a CertainTeed or an Owens Corning would. So I but then they got the Dynasty. Okay, now I'm talking just regular Owens Corning. Now I wasn't even thinking of the Dynasty series that they have. I'm just speaking of a standard shingle. Going back to what you were saying, what shingle did they use when they did this testing? Were they using a GAF Camelot designer shingle that is you would need a ball peen hammer to actually put a bruise in that thing, or were they using a Tamco Heritage?
They said that they were using a organic 3-tab and a fiberglass 3-tab. This is how old the report is. Organics were still available, and an organic architectural shingle and a fiberglass architectural shingle. So they were probably using a 20-year 3-tab and a 30 or 35-year architectural shingle, which definitely at that age would get damaged a little bit faster than newer materials that are produced today would, especially with the amount of polymers that are in the asphalt layers today. But they didn't specify the brand, and they definitely didn't go beyond an 11-year-old shingle. And there is some anomalies in their data even. At 1 year old, 1.25-inch hail caused damage to the organic shingle, and then it didn't again until it was 11 years old. But for whatever reason, right away, it was easily damaged by small hail.
Right.
But they're defining damage their own way, not the way that the insurance policies define it. So they're defining it as functional. And functional damage has some terminology in there that's a little bit concerning. They talk about the reduction of service life. What they're actually talking about is a reduction of expected service life. If the expected service life is its warranty level, if it's a 35-year expected service life and you have a hail hit, the shingle would have actually lasted 50 years, and the granule loss caused by the hail hit makes it last 37 years instead of 50, but that's still greater than the 35-year expected service life. Then it hasn't had a reduction in its expected service life, so it hasn't been functionally damaged. But it still has had a reduction in service life. There's a big difference between these terminologies. There's a lot of obfuscation used in this industry. Anyway, I do a class called Dealing with Engineers, and we really get into some of the semantics. Engineers use terminology the way that engineers use it. And they might use a term that is the exact same word that an adjuster would use, but the adjuster uses that term differently. It's jargon. And because it's different from one segment to the next, it allows for some very easy misinterpretation, almost likely purposeful misinterpretation.
Yeah.
Possibly.
Right. Right. And it's funny that you just brought that up because earlier when I asked, how would someone find out about, what their policy says and interpreting their policy, unfortunately, you probably can't call your insurance company and talk to your insurance agent because they're not going to divulge information that could potentially put them at a loss. You know what I mean?
Even the adjusters. You just hit on something that I teach constantly. If you are trying to get an insurance company to admit something that will have long-term consequences for them, they're not going to do it. If you try to get them to define damage, they can't define that. It will have an impact on every claim going forward. You will set a precedent. They're not going to do it. They'd rather you sue them. They'd rather settle outside of court in that kind of a situation. You can't paint them into a corner asking yes or no questions that you know the answer to. They do know the answer to those questions. They can't answer it because it will cause long-term effects for them. So don't ask questions like that. It's pointless. You're just going to end up handing it off to a PA or an attorney. Right. There's just no point in going down those paths. If you want to paint them towards a corner, you better give them an out at some point so that they can grasp at that out and actually pay for the claim without having to take 2 years in court. There's just no point in asking questions that they cannot answer. Their legal department's not going to let them. I don't know why a lot of PAs go down these paths. A lot of contractors do too, but I see a lot of PAs that they know they're right and they know the insurance company is wrong and they want the insurance company to say, yeah, we were wrong about this. They're not going to do it. Why would they?
Right. Because that right there is probably going to be referenced back to every single time that anything is ever brought up again.
They're terrible.
Like, remember,
they're not benefiting the policyholder in any way doing that. So document the shit out of stuff. Show them why you're right, and then give them a reason that they should change their minds that doesn't violate what they've said already. There's definitely strategy that can be used for a lot of things that people. Anyway, there's a lot that can be learned. There's so much that hasn't been taught in this industry that is still ripe, and people need to really go out of their way to find good sources of information. They're out there.
Yeah. Yeah, and definitely you're one of them for sure, man. You have a good thing going, man. You're a very intelligent dude. I was just sitting here thinking, God, I would not want to get in a battle with you. If you were the public adjuster that came out, I'm thinking, dude, I'm going to fuck him, man. Here comes Mathew. Forget about it.
I had contractors at one point. They would, if they got in a bind, they would say, if you don't pay for this claim, I'm going to get Matt Mulholland involved. And sure enough, they would pay the fucking claim.
I'm doing it.
It pissed me off in a way. I didn't get paid for that. Yeah. I was a PA. That's how I got paid. Don't threaten to use me.
You need to copyright your damn name, dude.
Yeah, for real.
Copyright that shit every time they say it.
I could. I have not.
Yeah, dude, that's good stuff, man. You're definitely very informative, man. You're full of information.
Bullshit.
I think it's really awesome that you're doing this and took up the passion for teaching and you're just another one of the people that we have on the show, dude, that is just offering so much to this industry. And it's cool that it's not just on the contractor level either. You know what I mean? Because you're at some point in time, hopefully contractors and insurance companies will just play the honest game for the homeowner, because that's what it's about, man. People are paying money out of their pockets, hard-earned money, to ensure they're the most valuable purchase that they have, man. At some point in time, people need to just pay up or don't pay up. Be honest about the shit. If there's damage, there's damage. If there's not, there's not. And all this other bullshit that goes on that I see on Facebook all the time. It's like all that's doing is just hurting the industry, hurting the homeowner, hurting the consumers.
Right.
So that's good stuff, man.
You're right about that. There's most of the guys that you meet on site, most of the field adjusters, they're good guys. Mm-hmm. The vast majority of them, I probably less than 5% are really the bad apples. And those guys that are good, they're trying their best to do what they can with the handcuffs that they have.
Right.
And if you can work with them instead of against them, instead of assuming they're the bad guy, because they're not, instead of assuming that and going at them like they're diabolically trying to underdo everything that you're giving them, and they just want to say no, work with them, find out what it is that they need to get it past their manager, and they'll be happy to accept it more often than not.
They're not paying out of their pocket.
Right. Well, I mean, they get paid differently than they used to, though. But they might have day rate or something like that, where they're not going to get any different amount. But ultimately, they still don't want to tell Mrs. Smith no. They're tired of telling people no. They want to say yes. They really do.
Mm-hmm.
Their hands are tied. So you have to find out what it is that you can give them to break those bonds and allow them to say yes. If you can do that with enough of them, you're going to make a hell of a reputation for yourself in your area, and they're going to like working with you. And they'll probably start recommending you to the people that they inspect. They can't say that out loud. It's all under the table shit. But when they know that they can't do anything and they need somebody that knows what they're doing, they'll get you involved.
Yeah,
it's very useful.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I guess a lot of that has to do with, how that individual is built, if you have integrity or not. And I've seen some things that, people have trying to get away with. We rolled up onto Lauren when Lauren started, who's our project manager now. When she started, she rode around with me for about probably her first 3-6 months. And we got to an appointment early, about 30 minutes early. And there was another roofing company already on this individual's home. And I could see the one gentleman, there was 2 gentlemen up on the roof, and I could see the one gentleman looking around over the peak. They were on the back side of the home. Little did they know there was a street back there. So we were kind of taking the long way around because we knew we were early. And the other guy was vandalizing. It was 3-tab shingles. He was trying to crease the shingles, and it made me sick on my stomach. So now I'm in a position like, okay, now what do I do? Do I go over there? Do I tell the homeowner? Like what do I do now? And Lauren had no idea what was going on. Yeah, what was going on? And I explained to her, I'm like, look, they're performing vandalism, like on these people's roofs, like they're trying to cause. And now they did have storm damage on the face of the home, but they didn't have storm damage on the rear of the home. And that's where they were trying to create storm damage, or what looked like storm damage.
To get the whole roof paid for.
Whole roof paid for. Yeah. I mean, and there's just too much of that going on. And it's like, that's not, and I'm not even trying to say, because most people that talk about integrity probably don't have it. So I'm not going to use that word, but I don't.
That's a golden rule. I think that's absolutely true.
Right. Like I just don't believe in conducting business that way. I mean, there's enough work out there. If you have to be that greedy or that much of a knucklehead,
you're not doing something right, man.
Yeah, something's wrong in your personal
worse. I think that there's going to be more vandalism just because of the state of the economy. There's going to be people that get in the industry that need money. The industry will grow when the economy fails because this is recession proof. Mm-hmm. So it will grow just like it did before. But it's going to grow in areas where there's a lot of damage. There's going to be a lot of people that make money, and then suddenly there won't be another storm for a while, and there will be more vandalism as a result. Or because it's so difficult to go from a handful of damaged shingles to a full replacement right now, there's going to be a lot of vandalism along those lines. I have recorded people vandalizing roofs, sent it to district attorneys, and they've told me that that's not enough evidence to be able to prosecute against anyone. And it's simply because they have to do a sting operation. They have to be able to go out there and take a look at the entire roof, every single shingle beforehand to verify that it wasn't already damaged before they touched it, and then go back out immediately afterwards. Otherwise, it's nothing that can be prosecuted. If you have an adjuster saying that this is likely vandalism, or if they're calling it mechanical damage caused by aggressive inspection services or whatever it is that they say on their reports, sometimes it's better for the policyholder to go vandalism. It might be a lower deductible. It might be more coverage. It might not be ACV or RPS anymore. It might be RCV, where with hail or wind, it might be an RPS schedule or ACV only because of its age. Mm-hmm. So it's not always a bad thing to allow it to go that route. You just don't want them to force you into filing a new claim. You've already claimed the same damages. You only have to claim the damages. You don't have to be right about the date of loss or the cause of loss. If new information comes out, then you have the right to change the cause of loss and the date of loss. That's the way the policies work. The insured has to file for cause of loss, date of loss, and all that to the best of their knowledge. If their knowledge changes, they can change that. And so can the insurance company. Mm-hmm. The only issue that you might have with this is if they do force you to file a police report. Very few policies actually require a police report for vandalism. They might only require it for theft or burglary. So if they don't require it for vandalism, don't do it. Because if you file a police report for vandalism, even if you disagree that it was, but if you file it, now there's a higher crime rate in that area and the property values can go down. But if they make a second claim out of it, if they convince you to file a new claim, now you have 2 claims on record for the same damages, which gives the insurance company the ability to say that there's artificially too many claims in our area and we should raise our rates in this area because there's so many more claims than we expected to have. And that's bullshit. Same damages. Don't cause vandalism. It is very obvious. One of the things that I teach in the roofing courses is how fucking obvious it is. They know when there's vandalism on a roof. But if it is going to be pushed that way, if you weren't the one that caused it, it might not be a bad idea to go that route. And I want you guys to be aware of that fact. Don't freak out too much on that. Unless you're the one that caused it, then freak the fuck out.
Good nugget there, bro.
I like this guy.
I do too, man. What a great episode. We're an hour and 5 minutes into it already.
Yeah. What are you sipping on over there, Matt?
I got something called a Boulevard Tank 7. It's an American Saison. And it might not show up because I got a green screen and it's got a green label. But this was a gift from someone from Coastal Claims. And I've never really liked Saisons that much, but this particular one I've been really into. So he's brought me a lot of them. I drink this on a lot of my episodes. But I usually have a beer during the Listen to This Bull show. I usually encourage my guests to have a beer or two. Usually by beer 3, the conversation gets really interesting and they start opening up about stuff.
I bet.
A little bit more like they would be in real life instead of the way they are on camera.
Yeah.
Because their inhibitions go away. It's a worthwhile thing. Of course, it's caused me to have a gut.
It happens, dude.
Yes, it does.
Happens.
It's
part of
life.
Right. Happens to the best of us. Right.
Yeah, man. Well, this has been a fun show, man. This has been a fun show. Super informative show. All the viewers, if you guys are tuning in after the 30-minute mark here, make sure you guys hop over to Listen to This Bull. It's Matt Mulholland's YouTube page. Super informative. He's been 3 years worth of content. So between his live shows and the little clips that he does and everything, super informational and informative. Everyone out there has the same thing in common. They have insurance on something. Everyone out there has some kind of policy out there. So it doesn't just apply to roofing. I mean, the terminology on insurance is the terminology on insurance. And, even if maybe you're not necessarily interested in the exterior of your home, but, I'd imagine auto policies, like everything, all insurance policies probably use the same kind of terminology. And this guy can teach you how to really, really read into those things. Because apparently there's a lot of bullshit in the industry. So
a lot of bullshit. You can find us on any of the major podcast channels as well. Apple Podcasts, Google, whatever they're called, Spotify.
Yeah.
Listen to This Bull. So check it out.
Awesome.
Yep. Check him out.
Yeah.
Listen to the bull.
And while you guys are out there, make sure you guys hop over to the Behind the Toolbelt YouTube page.
Oh, yeah. Forget about that.
And subscribe to that. Because I believe we probably have about 90% of our audience that is not subscribed to our YouTube page.
Yes.
That's like the new thing for all the YouTube creators out there. That's like how they start their things out. They pop a little box up and they're like, YouTube's telling me that 77% of you are not subscribed to my channel.
Subscribe.
Well, yeah, ours is a little bit higher than that. So make sure you guys go over there and push the fucking button. It takes 2 seconds.
Yes.
Now I want to go look to see what my percentage is. I have no idea. I haven't seen that.
Yeah, they'll tell you, like, let's just say you have 800 views on your video or something. It'll tell you how many of those views, what percentage are subscribed and unsubscribed.
No shit.
So, yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So make sure you guys do that.
That's probably a statistic you want to avoid if you already have an upset stomach.
Probably.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah.
You might want to have another Pilsner with you.
Yeah.
Definitely some Tylenol, bro. Some ibuprofen. For sure. Well, Matt, it's been fun, man. It's been fun.
Yeah, I like your show.
Yeah, for sure.
Cool.
For sure. Viewers, we appreciate you guys, man. I see the regulars in here. If you guys have any kind of questions or anything, you can reach out to us, reach out to Matt. Matt, how can someone get a hold of you if they have questions about what you do or the insurance claims and everything?
The easiest way to get a hold of me is via email. Mathew, spelled with 1 T, at listentothisbull.com. But you can also find me on Facebook, spelled with one T. You see my name here. This is exactly how it is on Facebook. You send a private message. I am ridiculously busy, so please don't expect an immediate response, but I will get back to you.
Awesome.
Very cool.
What a pleasure,
cool.
man. Thank you for your
Yes.
time. Thank you for your input and your knowledge, and thank you. Just thank you for coming on our show, brother.
Yes. TC Backer family, it's been another great episode. Looking forward to next week, episode 140.
Whoa.
Episode 140 next week, man. Everyone enjoy the rest of your week. Be safe, and we'll see you guys next Wednesday at 7 p.m. Everyone have a good night.
Peace.